Darnold, forever, I said he's a first-round talent. Just get him to the right coach. Once again, a great final drive to win a game. He's had several of those. Fourth in the NFL in touchdown passes. The reckless stuff, oh, he'll have a throw every game. I wince a little bit. But he has become a really good fourth quarter quarterback. 10 of his 12 starts, 100-plus passer rating. He's getting it to the right players at the right time, and I trust him. That's the one thing I'll say about good quarterback play. He gets the ball with a minute and a half left. I trust him. He's going to drive that team down to a field goal minimum, and he did it again this week. Sam Darnold.
Okay. So Colin is both right and wrong here. Okay? Because don't forget about this. And I defend it. So Colin absolutely deserves credit because he has been praising and defending Sam Darnold for years when it was obviously one of the most unpopular public opinions that anyone could hold. So again, he absolutely deserves credit. And honestly, he's probably a big reason why I even kept up with considering Sam Darnold and liking him. So he deserves all that credit. But let's make no mistake about it. Because I did the clip and I defended Sam Darnold. He said, Sam Darnold is not good enough. It was against the Rams, and he said, what was the difference? It was Matthew Stafford, Sam Darnold. And he talked about how the Vikings need to really move on from Sam Darnold, and then he's not good enough, and late in games, and this, and I said, whoa. That's not true. That's not fair. Sam Darnold wasn't the problem. He's not why they lost that game. And I defended it very intensely and had lots of conversations with people in the comments. So you can't now say, oh, Sam Darnold, he's big time. He comes up big. You trust him in the fourth quarter. He's leading these teams to his team to game-winning drives and all of that. You can't have it both ways. You can't have it both ways. But, we'll give it to him. Colin's the GOAT, so I will allow it. This game was pretty wild, honestly. I've been talking about this recently. Like, it's so fascinating to me when we can look at a box score and you can see that a team is just significantly statistically outplayed. Again, I mean this strictly statistically outplayed. Arizona had more first downs, more total play by a margin, 25-19 first downs, 77 total plays to 51, total yards 406 to 273, time of possession 36 to 24. And it's so fascinating to me, and this is why football is awesome, and sports in general are awesome, and why it's not just 100% who scores the most points or who has the most yards is the better team, this or that, because sometimes it's true. Sometimes a team like this, the Cardinals could lose, still have all of these, the same, similar box score, and I could still make the argument, the Vikings were clearly better, they played better. And on the flip side, you could have it where the Vikings win this game, have the exact same, box score essentially, and I could say, no, they were clearly not that good. Like you can look at it in so many different ways. That's why watching the game itself is so important, and it's always interesting to me when sometimes you watch the game and the box score really, right, the numbers itself can really be disconnected from that. And it's like, well, how do I make sense of this? Because that's what I do. I watch the game, I take my notes, then I look at the numbers. All right, I try to reach my conclusions first off of that. Then I look at the numbers to see. And when the numbers are disconnected from that, you're like, how do I make sense of that? That's what I kept thinking about this game. When I'm looking over my notes, I'm like, how do I make sense of this? How can some of these things be accurate? How can we draw these conclusions? And then you kind of get to it and you're like, well, then there you go. Because it's not even turnovers, because some of the turnovers came too late in the game to really make that true impact. One of the interceptions by Kyler was just, just what else are you going to do? And the one was obviously just, you're like, what was that throw? That was a major gift. You owe Kyler, a thank you card and a handshake. But the red zone, they were 1 for 6 in the red zone, the Arizona Cardinals. And the Vikings were 2 for 4, right? When they had their opportunities, they were able to seize. And when the Cardinals were ready to go, the defense stepped up. I care less when you're giving up a lot of first downs, a lot of sustained drives. Obviously, it's not ideal. It's not the best thing. But obviously, the most important thing is locking down the red zone defensively. And that's why it's always interesting, because depending on what show or who you're talking to, they rate top defenses either by points per game, yards per game. Like it really depends on like however anyone's thinking in that moment. And it's obviously more complicated than that. You can't just reduce a great defense to just yards or points for that matter. Although points is going to have the better argument than yards. And so that's when you look at a team like the Vikings and say, are they just a team that can really pay attention to details? And it's why I'm so obsessed with trying to accurately reach a conclusion before looking at anything else and seeing, was this team lucky for the win or unlucky for the win? Or was this more about this team winning or more about the other team losing? And that's why you have to do it week to week to week. As unpopular as it can be, because if I said, hey, the Vikings were really lucky to beat, let's just say the Chicago Bears. They were really lucky to beat the Chicago Bears. People are like, no, that's not true. They're the better team, this, that, and it's like, okay, maybe that's true. But listen, they were very fortunate to be able to come away with that win. And then on the flip side, you have a game like this. And again, this is a made-up example. You have a game like this, and you could say, hey, you know what? The Cardinals or the Vikings really didn't play that well, and they still won. But guess what? This was more about them winning. Like it can always balance out. If you're a good team, it will balance out. Or if anything, if you're a good team, it'll prove to be more that you're the better team. You're winning more games than the other team is losing. And it's okay to admit when your team wins a game that they were very fortunate to win. It's something that for some reason fans really do struggle with. It's something that I've never struggled with, honestly. It's just something that just makes logical sense to me to understand. But it's something that people are very obsessed, and then you hear the people on media talk about it where they're just like, it's hard to win no matter who you're playing. A win is a win. And I never buy into that, ever. And because of that, because I don't buy in that, I think it gives me more validity and gives me more credit to be able to then make some of the statements of saying, like, how can the Arizona Cardinals essentially seem like, I mean, when you look at the stats, dominant stats, again, 406 yards, 77 total plays, 25 first downs, 36 minutes time of possession, it gives me more of ability to say, you know what, I hear all that, but the Vikings won this game. They played better. They stepped up. They were more situational. They did what needed to be done. They took care of the ball better. They played better defensively, situationally, than the Cardinals. They're off, right? Like I can point all of those things out, and from my viewpoint, it holds more weight, at least in my own mind, in my own conclusion. Whether it holds more weight to you all, you know, I hope it does. But I try to make sense to myself first and foremost. And I try to reach a conclusion that makes the most amount of sense to me, that is authentic, to then get to this. Because this was a wild game to me. It may not really seem it, because the game itself wasn't like, you don't watch this game and say, oh my God, that game was wild. You got to see these highlights. Like, that's not the way how this game landed. A couple of the highlights were like bad highlights where you're like, I can't believe Kyler Murray made that throw. What the heck was that? But a game like this, I find so fascinating. Sam Darnold was the leading rusher, 4 carries for 22 yards. I was like, what? You know, like, what even was that? You know, he's 21 for 31, 235 yards, 7.6 yards per attempt, 2 touchdowns, and a 111 rating. He had 5 sacks, but also made beautiful tight window throws. This game was honestly really just... I can't tell if this game perfectly encapsulates who the Vikings have been throughout this season, or if not at all. Like, I'm so on the fence about what a game like this is, honestly, in terms of what it represents for the Vikings, because I already have my conclusion of the Vikings, that they're a top team in the NFL. I've never wavered from that. A lot of people tried to explain away their record, right? The Vikings were definitely one of those other teams, like the Steelers actually, and like the Eagles until the Ravens game, where it was like, yeah, they have a good record. Yeah, they're technically have one of the best records in the NFL, but there was always that but Sam Darnold, but this, but that. And I was always like, well, you can do that all you want. This is a top team. And I'm actually pretty confident there's a huge chance Sam Darnold's going to continue to be the quarterback. There is no guarantee that J.J. McCarthy is going to step up and be what Sam Darnold can be. None. None. There's a reason why a majority of these players fail in the NFL. I don't care what happened in preseason and college, doesn't matter. There's zero guarantee. You do have a guarantee with what Sam Darnold's doing right now. I mean, he has been a big-time player. And everyone keeps waiting for that pumpkin watch to come. And even Colin says he's going to make a throw that's going to, make you cringe. So does every single quarterback. Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, Jalen Hurts, Justin Herbert, every single quarterback. Maybe except for, honestly, Tom Brady. I'd have to go back and really relive those days in the 2000s to really, lock in. But I mean, so people use that as a caveat to kind of knock Sam Darnold down a peg. But the dude has been box office. The way he's been moving in the pocket, in and out of the pocket. The way how he escaped for that one touchdown. He's a big guy making big time throws. This offense, this team, this defense, they're 10-2 in the best division in the NFL. They're fighting for the number 1 seed. I mean, do people realize that the Minnesota Vikings are legitimately in the hunt for the number 1 seed and a first round bye? It will probably come down to potentially to some tie-breaking situations. Potentially. And so I don't know how that unfolds, honestly. To this day, I still don't, the whole, tiebreakers are always kind of crazy. I usually am just like, I don't need to understand it. Just tell me who's the number 1 seed, who's the number 2 seed. Let's get on with this. Because they always want to give you like the million different ways. If this team wins and if the 49ers lose, and it's like, oh my God, whatever, man. Just let's get to it. So I don't really exactly know what would come to be. But if people are still trying to explain away the Vikings' success, I mean, I don't know what to say at that point. But this was an impressive win because this wasn't their perfect football. When Sam Darnold's your leading rusher with 22 yards, I mean, it's just they had 15 carries for 68 yards, 4.5 yards per carry. It was a little some head scratching, honestly. But games like this, if you're constantly winning games like this, then it's a problem. Then it's kind of like, what are you doing here? And it's why I've been hard on teams kind of like the Chiefs and stuff like that, because it's like, what are we doing here? But when you see a team like the Vikings win in so many different ways, I just think it's very impressive. And when you have games like this unfold, you don't come away at the end of it thinking the Vikings were fortunate to win that game. When you look at some of these other teams play, how some of their other games unfold, you can say, this other team was really fortunate that this is the way it kind of unfolded for them. With the Vikings, it feels more like they constantly put themselves in that situation to come away with the win. And that's the fundamental difference. They're the ones that are putting themselves in that situation. They're not relying on the other team to give it to them. The Vikings simply take it. But those are just my thoughts. I'd absolutely love to hear yours. What do you guys all think about the Minnesota Vikings, Sam Darnold, and the fact that they are 10-2? Let me know in the comments below. I read every single comment, so whether you agree with me or disagree with me, either way, let's get in some discussions. Let's get in some fights, but ultimately, let's just have some fun. And please do consider subscribing. We are building an amazing community here, and I'd absolutely love to see you part of it. I want to build something that we all genuinely feel connected to, something that we're really excited to be part of. I think we're on our way to doing it. And please don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, as it really does help the visibility and the algorithm. Thank you so much, and see you next time.